Hey, what is going on? Of course, to all of my alternative adult book snobs, of course, it is me, Amira Blaze, and welcome back to another episode of Bookshade. So, guys, we're going to do a couple things for today's episode. So, first off, I wanted to start with a bookmark haul. There we go. So I've been collecting ever so often bookmarks that I can use while I'm reading. So I actually got two different types, and I wanted to show that to you guys today. So the first style, and I got all of these guys from Amazon. I actually have this in the book that I'm currently reading right now, which is Dark Lover by J.R. Ward. So this is what's called a Chinese hairpin bookmark. So I have this one. It's really nice. So it has this like tassel kind of dangling on the end, and this one is made out of metal, so I'll show you. So that's how it looks like. And it's pretty heavy with the tassel on there, but that's good because it'll keep, you know, your place in your book, so it won't like fall out as easily. So let me put that back. And then here are the other ones, guys. These are really cool. I got a set of 4 of these. Now, what these ones are called are leaf bookmarks, okay? They're Chinese leaf bookmarks. And the reason why, guys, they call them this is because there's an actual leaf inside, and they laminate it and put a art design on top of the leaf. It is really unique, pretty cool. So let me show you all 4 of them. So there's this one. So I got that. Then I got this one. That's how that one looks like. The last 2, these are my personal favorite, to be honest. So we have this one. And then this one here is the final one here. So yeah, these are really awesome. So I'm really glad I got these. So you guys let me know what are some of your favorite styles of bookmarks, and I'm getting some more actually. They're really inexpensive and you get a whole bunch, and I wanted to have different types. Now I won't lie to you guys, the Chinese hairpin, the metal style, those ones can cost a little bit more. On average, I've seen them on Amazon for as low as like $7, but it can go up to almost $12 for those type of bookmarks because they're a little bit more durable. But I usually wait for it to go on sale before I before I get them. So all right, guys, let's move on to the second portion here of the show, and that is excuse me, guys, I've been dealing with allergies, so sorry I'm like clearing my throat a lot. So what we're gonna do now is I am doing what's called a readathon reaction challenge. So what I do is I pick a readathon, and then I apply the rules to that readathon and give a reaction to what I am reading. So right now I am doing what's called the series Crackdown readathon, and what this readathon is all about, it's like series breakdown too, to be more accurate. What this particular readathon is about is you're trying to, in succession, read as many books within a book series as you can. So I am way behind, guys, because I'm still still on, as you can see here, book 1 of Black Dagger Brotherhood, and this is simply entitled Dark Lover, and we're going to react to I'm on chapter 24, and that's what we're gonna do today. So let's get started here. I got my guys. Let me tell you, I think I have found the most comfortable, affordable headphones for listening to audiobooks, as well as like playing your games and stuff like that. And what I have here, these are the Sadie SA810, so 810 gaming headset, but I mainly use this for when I'm listening to my audiobooks, because the way that I tend to retain my reading a little bit better is, if it's possible, I listen to the audiobook and then I actually read the book, and that seems to be the best method for me. But you know, every reader is different, right? So let me go ahead and put these on. They're very, very comfortable. Oh, they feel so good. Yes, I love these. All right. Okay, so let me go ahead and get chapter 24 started. So the last time, guys, I did read ahead, so if I do read ahead, I will let you guys know what happened. I'm so sorry, guys, I'm like sweating and I'm a mess, but I digress. So this is what happened in the previous like chapters. So a couple of things. There's a lot of different storylines going on. So right now we have the main storyline between Beth and Raft. Okay, Raft, he's kind of he's a tough guy, you know. He's not the most emotionally like I would say emotionally kind of well-rounded person. He's been through a lot, and for some reason he is really attracted to Beth. And Beth, I mean, she is also attracted to him, but here's what makes it complicated, is that Raph is already taken by another ancient vampire by the name of Marissa. Okay, and Marissa, I give her props because she for centuries has stayed by Raph's side, has been loyal to him, and Raph was never, that's what we find out, that Raph was never attracted to her in the first place, and that's gotta hurt. Okay, so I really feel for Marissa in regards to that. And then we also find out that her brother Havers is like a vampire scientist, and he is trying to figure out, I'm so sorry guys, I gotta get this headband off, it is itching me like crazy. Whew. I think it's just because I've been sweating so much, sorry about that. All right, there we go. Oh, that's much more comfortable. Yeah, I was itching. I was like, what is going on? So maybe I might not wear that headband again, but I digress. Anyways, so what ended up happening is that you have Marissa's brother Havers, who is a vampire scientist, and he's trying to find a way if he can cure some of the issues that vampires, you know, deal with, such as drinking blood and who knows, maybe being able to you know, walk in the daytime without having complications and problems. So so finally Marissa tells her brother, hey, by the way, me and Raft, we decided to break our bond, and we are no longer seeing each other. And then her brother asks, well, why? I mean, you've been together for all this time, what's going on? And come to find out that, you know, as this is Marissa telling her brother this, that, you know what, he's in love with a half human, half vampire woman, of course, named Beth. And that upsets Havers. So that's where we're at. But the only criticism that I have about this particular book series is there's way too many storylines going on. Way too many. I mean, it's hard to keep up, okay? So this is not a book series that I would recommend for beginners who are interested in the vampire romance genre. It's just like I wouldn't recommend Vampire Chronicles for a beginner paranormal romance reader, because there's a lot of history, there's a lot of background, and this particular book series, guys, I do recommend getting the Black Dagger Brotherhood guide, which I have. That also helps to supplement and make sense of things that get talked about in the book that you may not understand yourself. But there's like literally a glossary in the front of this book, so I was like, oh, I know what I'm getting myself into. I gotta make sure I'm taking notes and trying to keep up, because like so far we got Butch and Beth, and that didn't work out because Beth canceled him, not attracted to him. But Butch is still trying because he's like, you know, this Raph guy, he's kind of sketchy. He doesn't seem to be a good guy. And Butch doesn't really understand the situation, because Beth can't just come out and say, oh, hey, Butch, what's going on? Just to let you know, I'm half human, half vampire. But yeah, as you were saying, like it just, you know, it just doesn't. It doesn't work like that. It just doesn't. So she's kind of keeping this a secret from Butch. And then we also find out that Butch, in some of the earlier chapters, that Butch has a lot of emotional separation issues when it comes to women. If a woman is attracted to him, he's just like, I'm just using you for the intimacy, and that's it. Like I cannot fall in love with you. But for some reason he's really in love with Beth, and I think it's because maybe Beth is different than the women that he often meets up with. So yeah, Butch got a lot going on. He's got a lot of emotional disconnection issues. He's faced a lot of stress. A lot of stress in his life. Raph also faced a lot of stress. Like he had to figure out how to become a vampire on his own. His parents, they were vampires, but they didn't explain this shit to him. Like, what the fuck? Like, you know, so as you can see, guys, there is a lot going on. Then we have the lesser society, and we have the storyline of Mr. X, who is just freaking heartless. He does not give two shits on how anybody feels. He's just about himself. And he is very ruthless. Like, he's very unapologetic, even when it comes to his colleagues, even when it comes to him training other lessers. He's like, you gotta do better. Like, I don't give a shit, you gotta do better. So there's that storyline as well. So that's all of what we're up to. And we also have Laura. Hey, what's up? Welcome to the show. And Laura says, Butch sounds like a hot mess. All the characters in this series, Laura, in all due respect, they got some baggage. They all have like some stuff going on, and it's a lot to take in. And I won't lie, J.R. Ward does a great job with descriptors. Like, you know, she really like makes you want to learn more about the character. You can feel their experiences. And of course we have Jenny, who is a Black Dagger Brotherhood expert. But all jokes aside, welcome back to the program. And yeah, we do find out that Butch, when it comes to how his that is correct, how his family has treated him, his family, unfortunately, his family dynamic is a hot damn mess too. But still, you still should have respect for women. That's just me. You know, like he's kind of heartless like that, except with Beth, because I think that to me, I think there's something that really stands out about Beth that makes Butch be like, okay, yeah, I wanna, you know, pursue that. But it's just not possible. Okay, like when you're you know, when you're a vampire, and I mean it works in other series, you know, but even then, guys, like for example the Stooky Stackhouse series by Charlene Harris, another series I highly recommend you guys check out. You see that complexity of, you know, Sookie being with Bill, and how at first it seemed like it was the perfect relationship, hashtag, you know, paranormal romance relationship goals, but then we come to find, or in my case I come to find out that like Bill has a lot of baggage that Sookie at first doesn't really like comprehend, and she has her own baggage too, and Bill kind of reminds me of like Lewis in the Vampire Chronicles, because when you read Interview with the Vampire, while he's talking to the journalist, there's a part where there were moments where you could tell he was conflicted. If you watch the movie, which I highly recommend, you see him being conflicted, you know, meeting Lestat and the relationship that they have, and wanting to be human again, but knowing that he cannot be human again, and that he's kind of losing touch with that, but he wants to regain it. And this is a similar theme that kind of is going on with this book, is that each one of these characters, for the exception of Mr. X, because I swear he's fucking crazy, but it seems like most of these characters want some type of normalcy in a way, but because of the lives that they live, it's hard for them to obtain. So that's the gist of what I've kind of learned so far. So let's get into me reacting to chapter 24, and if I go over a little bit, then so be it, but I'm gonna try to just keep it to one chapter at a time, and if I read ahead, just to kind of speed up this process, or else it will take me like 10 years to get through this series, because guys, there is a lot of fucking books, okay, and that's not even counting the short stories and novellas, and some of them I was able to get, and then some of them I couldn't get, unfortunately. So I'll read what I can. I'll also I have to do a separate episode on just explaining the terminology, and also the companion guide, which I highly recommend. Please get that Black Dagger Brotherhood companion guide. You will thank me, okay? Because there's a lot going on. And Jenny says I've read them all. Well, yeah, I could tell you were more of an expert, because I could tell that you have read the series, because you know a lot more specifics than I do. But this series is it's a lot, you know. I'm always going to keep it real when it comes to how I feel about a book series on here. We all have our favorites. We're all like book stands when it comes to certain series, but just from starting this, I felt like, and this is just the feeling how I'm reacting right now, I feel like just reading this one book alone, I've read like 12 books. So well, let's see what happens here, guys. So let's get started here with excuse me, chapter 24 here. See what happens. Ooh, that was loud. Oh, and another interesting fact about Raph too that kind of cracked me up is that he is a huge fan of like hip hop and rap music, which I was not expecting at all. So it definitely has that like rap and hip hop feel throughout the book at times. So I thought that was interesting. And okay, Jenny is giving that Black Dagger Brotherhood tea. Okay, bringing the book receipts. And Jenny adds that her newest book in the first, the newest book in the first of a new series, takes place in the Black Dagger Brotherhood world. And Jenny says that they all do. Yeah, it's just interesting because most of the time, this is just from my experience reading vampire literature, it's mainly classism. You know, for me, reading like or getting started reading like the Stookie Stackhouse series, it brought a little more modernism. But like the Vampire Chronicles, it has a foundation of classism ideologies, and it's not until you get into like the second, like maybe the second to like the third book, you start to see a little bit more modernism. But it takes place during like, well, Vampire Lestat had a very like 80s feel to it, which was interesting. And then Interview with the Vampire is more of that like 90s kind of feel, but it's still very classical. So a lot of times there's a division between the vampire romance stands, you know. There are the people who are used to the classic vampire literature, so that's your Dracula, you know, of course. There's this book called the Historian, that kind of goes, it's like historical fiction based on the story of Dracula, and like the origins and all of that. So there's those stands, you know, that are into vampires having the classical formula, you know. They get up at night, they burn if they, you know, go in the sun and things like that. But with Black Dagger Brotherhood, it's flipping some of those traditions of the vampire a little bit upside down. Like in this particular world, vampires can eat food. It's not as satisfying as blood, but they can eat food, you know, and things like that. Or if you have seen or have read the Vampire Diaries too, there's still some of those like traditions of, you know, in order to have a vampire, like let's say it's a vampire attack, you have to like invite them in. And this is the same thing that we see in if you watch the show True Blood, that's like some of the same principles as well. So I thought that was just interesting that, you know, Raph is not just this like, you know, connoisseur, you know, like he's not wearing just like the ruffled feathers and stuff. So, but I won't lie though, the leather look is very cliche when it comes to more modern vampires. It's just something that's like a staple that I've noticed in vampire literature is like the black leather, like that kind of thing. So I thought that was interesting. And of course, Jenny is adding that yes, they don't feed from mortals, they feed from themselves. But it would be interesting if she were to take that the series, if you know, as she's continuing it, and take it into a different turn, or maybe like an alternate variation on that, because I thought that was interesting too, that they only feed from each other, which I get it, because, you know, that would expose their whole culture. I mean, that would make sense. But yeah, it's just it's a very, there are some things that are traditional in this particular series I've read so far, and there are some things that are kind of a little more modern, but this particular series is definitely has a 90s feel. There's a lot of references to 90s pop culture, so if you're not familiar with that, you may be like, okay, what is this? So this book series does require you in certain parts to do some research. I'm just keeping it real for it to make sense. Like there were times I had to like go back and maybe like like how to like connect all the relationships and stuff. It's a lot going on, especially for our first book. There's a lot. I know the Black Dagger Brotherhood stands, you guys have told me that it all comes together, but I would say for me, the way that I treat this show is I'm also looking at it from the perspective of someone that's a beginner. And this is a lot. This is a lot for a beginner. I would say maybe for someone that's more well versed and has read series like, Stooky Stackhouse series, which is a lot more easier than this series. It was way, way, way less like deep in the beginning. So this series is interesting because it jumps you right into the action and explaining the history, and you got like 50 million stories going on. So for some readers, of paranormal romance, you may not like this because it might be too much for you. For me, I can handle it because I'm used, I've read series that have those type of complex relationship, but even sometimes this series takes me off for a loop where something happens and I'm like, whoa, like I was not expecting that. So I do appreciate her writing style. She's very descriptive, but I think there are some parts of this book where it's a little bit overdone and it takes away from the main storyline. But that's just me though. But let's see what happens here. Let's see what happens. All right. Okay, so typical man, right? Okay, so there's a part here where it says here, he says, all that he could think about was burying his face in her hair as he drove the hardest part of himself deep inside of her body. That's typical men, typical heterosexual men right there. Like it's not even about what. So this is the thing sometimes, ladies, is that, and I'm just talking from a heterosexual perspective here, but it can still apply to a same-sex relationship, is sometimes it's like we get so fixated on how we look that at the end of the day, like, if a guy really likes you, like, he don't give a shit. Like, if you have makeup on, you have makeup off, like, it's a sincere man. Like, if he's really, really attracted to you, he's gonna be transparent of the things that we may be over analytical on. Because some women, like, I know, like myself, I spend a lot of time on my appearance. Like, I think sometimes I spend too much time. Like, it took me, guys, today an hour and a half to do this makeup. Okay, like, I was like, okay, let me make sure I got my liner correct. Let me make sure I got my eyeshadow well blended, and I also kind of blame the beauty industry sometimes for this. It's really interesting right now, since we're in the coronavirus situation that we're dealing with, all of us, unfortunately, but there has been some good, guys, that has come out of this. And from a beauty standpoint, or beauty industry standpoint, I'm seeing a lot more simplicity with makeup. I'm seeing a lot more simplicity with hair, and beauty is becoming something that, like, it's like anybody can do it. You don't need to have all this expensive makeup and brushes or the tools, to make yourself look good. And one thing I want to say, and this is just a little bit of a side tangent, just thinking about after I read this passage here, is, guys, during this quarantine, I know there's a lot of shit going on. I know that for many of you, just like myself, you know, you have times where you are stressed the fuck out. But please make sure that you're taking time to do your best to relax and to do something for yourself to feel good about yourself. Because it's like, if you're just watching the news all the time, that's not helping. You know, it's good to keep yourself informed, definitely. But make sure that you're also dividing that time where you're trying to acquire knowledge with what's currently going on, to make sure that you're doing things to keep yourself healthy, doing things that you love and that you enjoy, so that you can have a better mental state. Okay, and as a disclaimer, I'm not a medical professional, I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm just talking from my opinion, because I just see so many people just stress the fuck out, and it's really sad, actually. So please, guys, make sure, you know, you might be at home, or, you know, I definitely give props to all the people out there that are essential workers and people just in general that's had to work through this hell. Okay, please make sure that you, even if it's 5 minutes, make sure you're taking time for yourself, spending time with the people that you care about. Because if there's one thing that I have learned, guys, from this pandemic situation, is that life is really fucking short. And while you're on this earth, you want to make sure that you're making the most of it and doing things that bring you joy. Tangent over. But it was something in my heart, guys. It was something on my mind. It's very important, you know. But yeah, sometimes, you know, we get so caught up in our looks and beauty, and it's just the beauty, guys, that I try to achieve. It's just not attainable, like, unless I got like tons of plastic surgery. And even then, I probably would not reach certain ideal standards. So at the end of the day, guys, you just gotta really embrace who you are. And it can be tough, you know, it can be. But when you're with someone that really loves you, and they give you that compliment, and they're like, hey, you're beautiful, you know, really accept that. I know for me, guys, there was a part of my life where it was really tough for me to take compliments, because I was always called ugly, you know, and stuff. So it was tough. But now I'm learning that if a fine ass man, a well put together, intellectual, smart man tells me that I'm beautiful, I'm eating that shit up Monday through Friday. Yes, go on. Okay. So amen on that. But getting back into it, and and Jenny says that's what I found so interesting about the books. Yeah, you know, it's an acquired taste. You know, maybe this is not the series for me, but it might be for you. So that's why I try to diversify what I read in regards to the romance genre, historical fiction, and sometimes I even go out of those genres and then find things that kind of like maybe relate to it, or maybe something like I bought some science fiction books a while back, so I'll be, you know, reacting to those too. So we have fun here, okay, but we keep it real here, okay. And Jenny says thank you. Yeah, no problem. I know it's a tough time for us all, and we've had to readjust to, you know, staying home all the time. And at first, guys, I thought it was kind of cool, like, okay, yeah, you know, we're getting a little bit of a break or whatever. But guys, the longer you stay home, if you're privileged to, right, the more you realize, like, man, I like being outside, you know, like, you know, I like, you know, going to work and shit like that. Like, you know, the things that I think what this quarantine, one of the things that it's going to do, guys, is it's going to help us to reevaluate the things that often we take for granted. And there were a lot of things that I took for granted, and I don't take it for granted anymore. I'm like, I make sure, you know, I go outside, I get some fresh air, And you know, tomorrow I'm getting back into my workout regimen because I'm just not allowing myself, guys, to let myself go. You know, I'm just not trying to do that. So that's why I make sure do I have to put on a full face of makeup? The fuck no, you know. And I have my off days like anybody, right? But the reason why I even put on all this makeup is not only because of presentation, but for me, it's about keeping that mental state in my mind positive. And I'm treating this day like any other day. And I think it's very important to recognize that, because once you start to, you know, you're constantly watching the news all the time, and it's starting to create unnecessary stress in your life, that's when you start to really let go, and it's not always in the positive way. So, you know, like I always tell people, you know, make sure that you keep that positivity in your life, and everybody has a different way of dealing with it. And of course, I'm not here to tell people what to do at the end of the day, but it's very important to take care of yourselves, guys. So please be safe out there. You know, for me, you know, like I've been saying this too, you know, wear a mask, you know, and things like that. But once again, I'm not a medical professional. Not everybody can wear a mask because of certain health conditions. So make sure, guys, check with a medical professional, you know, and make sure that that's right for you. But for me, I'm wearing masks, you know, not only to protect myself, but also to respect others, you know. And you know, this virus is serious. And you know what's really sad is how many people that are still not taking this seriously. You know, it doesn't mean that you stop living your life, but you have to have common sense when it comes to this. And that's just how I feel, you know. And Jenny says, that's why I stopped watching the news. Too much sadness. Yeah, you know, it's good to watch the news, but you don't watch it in a way where it consumes you, you know, and you start to feel the wrong type of energy is the best way that I can put it. So I try to watch the news to inform myself, because it is important, guys, to stay up to date with what's going on, because you know things may change and stuff like that. But I don't watch it to the point where I'm watching it all day, which is not good, you know. And Lo says, I hauled most of my clothes before COVID hit to revamp my I see what you did there. No. To revamp my wardrobe. I'm down to 3 pairs of jeans, and gaining weight during COVID is real. Yeah, it can be, guys. Let me tell you, like, I'm really surprised that I have oh hey, we have someone new. We got Aya. What's up? And welcome to Bookshade, where here we talk about paranormal romance. We also talk about historical fiction and South Korean webtoons. So I welcome you, and thanks so much for checking out the show. I noticed that there's been a lot of new people. I really appreciate it. And I never thought, you know, I mean, I read horror. You know, I never thought people would even care to watch this show. So that really means a lot. And Jenny says, I know, but I'm one of these frontline people, and yeah, I totally get it. No, I totally understand. You know, if you're dealing with this every day, I can see why. But for me, I kind of do a balance of it. So, you know, I read the news articles, you know, I keep up with what the CDC is saying, you know, in regards to coronavirus and stuff, because that's important, you know. And Aya says that she watched my introduction and loved it. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. You know, like I do this show, guys, for, you know, like I said, for us that love the horror genre. It's a genre, especially in romance, that is greatly misunderstood. It's greatly misunderstood. And also, you know, I like to talk about some of the topics and issues that happen in the booktube community, and giving my perspective on it too, especially as a person of color. It's interesting how, like, the narrative of things have changed. I actually have a bonus episode coming up after I finish reading this, of me talking about, and it's definitely going to be a very interesting episode. I'm going to be talking about lately within booktube, there's been a lot of dialogue about black booktubers, and this term black booktuber, it has a pro and it also has a con to how it's being used. So that's what I'm going to be talking about later on today. Is it necessary to say, if you're a black person, that you're a black booktuber? Is it really a term that can be used in a way that can be positive, or could it be a term that's being used that could limit someone that is a person of color? And I think this is a very important discussion that needs to be had, because for me personally, you know, at first I like the term. You know, it is a very powerful term, you know, in a way, because you're showing this positive affirmation of your culture, being African American, right? But then I decided not to call myself a black booktuber, because I felt like that's all people would focus on. And I don't want my show just to focus on, sometimes, you know, because I do review interracial romance, and part of that genre is the cultural narrative and how the characters of different cultures interact with each other. But for me, I don't use the term because I want for people to see my show as what I'm focusing on, and my race is the last thing I think people should be concerned about in regards to my show. But we'll talk about that coming up a little bit in a few. All right. And let's see what happens here with Raph's crazy ass. But he, you know, I go back and forth. I'm like, you know, I like Raph, then I like Rage. I like Raph, then I like Rage, you know? So, and Aya says, I hadn't thought about that. I'm a white Latin X, so I do have race privilege, so it never really crossed my mind. That is a very interesting conversation. Yeah, because see, at first, I'm not gonna lie, I did hesitate with it because I didn't want for people to perceive me talking that way as me being like, oh, you shouldn't say that you're a black booktuber. But I've seen this term being used in a way that is counterintuitive to people who are African American. And what it's starting to do in a way is, now it's not people liking black booktubers as an example, or people of color that are booktubers and liking them because of their actual talent and what they contribute to the booktube community. What I'm starting to see now is just people, you know, associating black booktubers with, oh yeah, you know, they just talk about like black culture and stuff, which is fine, but that's only one element. My cultural awareness is only one. It's only one side of who I am. So that's the reason why I don't use black booktuber. I don't, you know, anymore, is because I want for people to come to my show and see that this is a show that kind of not only talks about those things from time to time, but also to maybe change the narrative, you know, because there's not a lot of, I have to be honest, there's not a lot of African American people that talk about, you know, the horror genre and the romance genre. I mean, there are some, but there's not a lot of us. And I think a lot of times I just want people to focus on what I'm talking about versus my race, because sometimes when things just be when you focus only on your race, that hinders the progress of sometimes those different perspectives and those different conversations that need to be had. When it comes to literature, culture is only one element. It's only one element. So we'll get into it today. We definitely will. So, all right, let's continue, because you know me, guys. I be going on them tangents. Okay. Okay. Raph says he won't give Beth the TLC. Okay, I see what's up. See, this is like what I tell guys all the time. Okay, because you know, every woman got a guy friend, right? That, you know, they always be talking like, hey, I'm single, you know, I'm a nice guy, you know, I wanna meet, and I'm talking heterosexual here, okay? But we are LGBTQIA plus friendly here, okay, on the program. I will be doing also LGBTQIA romance as well. I've just been reading, well, I've been reading it for a little bit, but I always like to, when it comes to that particular subgenre in romance, I don't try to read the stereotypical stuff. I try to read the, like, I try to read like LGBTQIA literature that really represents the community well. And as an ally, I feel like, and this is just me, there's a personal responsibility of, if I say that I'm an ally to certain communities and I'm reviewing literature on it, I think it's not good for me to read things that are stereotypical. That's just me though. And Lo says that my show is very unique, and I like the way you have it structured and how inclusive you are with these genres. Oh, well, thank you guys. That really means a lot. Like, I work hard on it. I try to be as inclusive as I can, but I also recognize too that I like to share, you know, my experience as, you know, as a person of color too, but I do my best to do it in an inclusive way, because I want for people when they come to my show to feel welcome and to do their best to understand that experience. I know not all people may not understand it, because we all kind of view privilege differently, but I've always been inclusive. Like, that's just how I've always been. Like, that's just the type of person that I am. But you know, we will talk about stuff on this show that it is going to be tough because sometimes these are conversations in regards to the booktube community that hasn't always been addressed the way that I mean, sometimes it's been addressed the way that I present it, but when we're talking about using this term Black booktuber, I think it's going to be interesting to see the reactions that people will respond to me. Because for me, I just want to be more inclusive, and part of being inclusive is having transparent conversations within the booktube community, and understanding each other. If we're not having these conversations, if we're only having conversations one-sided, that defeats the purpose of having a booktube community. And I feel my personal responsibility, I'm still new, I still have to pay my dues, you know, that's just how it goes, you know, when you're new. But I feel that I have a personal responsibility with my show, is to have these conversations and to maybe, who knows, maybe help to be part of changing that narrative, especially for adult readers and adult readers of color who who like to do reading that's outside of the popular stuff. It's okay to read popular stuff, but I also feel this is a booktube community, so we should be diversifying our reading. So besides culture, because that's the main thing everybody's talking about, which is valid, but diversity also is like reading books by people, like I would say a different experience that might be different from your own, or reading outside of a genre that you may not normally read, and doing that outside of a readathon. I'm just saying. So but I keep it real here. So it's like I tell people, when you come to my show, you have to come with an open mind and an open heart. So that's, I'm not a bitch or anything like that, but, I'm a critic as well. So part of how I analyze things is I take my own experience, and then I do the research of, learning about the author and things like that. But I've also analyzed this booktube community as well, and I have a lot to say, definitely, but I'm not gonna be a bitch about it, but I'm someone that I will keep it real. So I want for everybody to recognize that when you come to this show, please have an open mind and an open heart. I'm not here to be a bitch. So, because sometimes when you give your opinions, especially as me being a woman, that's the first conclusion that people jump to, is that, oh, she's just giving an opposite opinion because she wants to start drama. No, it's okay to have a difference of opinion. Or, oh, she just want to say that because she want to be a bitch. No, I think that the booktube community is wonderful, but in regards to, this is just me, in regards to adults, and in regards to, and this is just me once again, people who read paranormal romance, we're not respected. I'm just giving it real. We're not respected. The only time people give a shit about people who read paranormal romance is during like Halloween or some shit. But you can read paranormal romance or vampire romance outside of Halloween. Just saying. Just saying. All right. And Aya says that oh, okay, so you are LGBTQIA plus. Oh, that's awesome. Welcome. And you have not read like a gay book. You are not a terrible gay. What are you talking about? Here's the thing. Sometimes there's this concept, like, and this is like where we're going to be talking about in the other half of my bonus episode today, is like sometimes people expect like, okay, I'm black, so therefore when you come to my show, I'm just gonna be reading everything revolving around black literature, which is fine. It is absolutely fine. But when there's that perception, then when you're a person of color or LGBTQIA plus or etc., you get typecasted, and then that messes up your show at times, because then it stops your audience from being diverse. It's okay to have an audience of people who relate to you and stuff, because that's just how it works. A lot of times when you have a show, you do what we do. Most of the time, people that are going to check out your show or watch your show can relate to your experience, but that sometimes hinders the booktube community, is because when we only have one type of experience being the most popular, then that hinders everybody else and people like myself who read paranormal romance. Within the romance genre, or they call it romance booktube, the only time, like I said, people care about paranormal romance sometimes is during Halloween. And then when Halloween is over, then people are like, oh, that's not my thing. And if it's not your thing, that's totally fine. But if we're a booktube community, then we should also respect that we all read different things. It's like, for example, the whole argument with YA, right? doing a separate episode on that. You know, on one hand, have I read YA? I've read a little bit of the Vampire Diaries, so yeah, you know. But the YA that I would say that I read is more, I would qualify it more as new adult, just because of the subject matter, you know. But there's always been that battle with YA. It's like, if you're not talking about YA on your BookTube show, then nobody checks for you. It's kind of sad, actually. And we have Jericho. Hey, welcome, and appreciate you checking out the show today. But yeah, I have a lot of opinions on the BookTube community, and we'll get into it. But I will always talk about it, you know, from my perspective, not in a bitchy way, but I have to speak from my heart, you know, and the things that I have observed and the things that I have seen, because I really think it is important. You know, the more we're all sharing our opinions about the community, as long as it's done in an intellectual way, I think that's the better our community will get, especially for adult readers. I really feel bad for adult readers in the BookTube community. I just feel like we're kind of left out of the dialogue a lot. So yeah, it just kind of sucks. And Jenny says everyone seems to be hooked on. Yeah, I've noticed that there's been a lot of talk about fantasy, especially high fantasy seems to be the thing right now. But here's my thing. Okay, let's really keep it real, and then I'll get back into it here. And Jericho saying what genre is being encompassed? That's a good question. No, I was talking about the BookTube community, and how sometimes BookTube is very diverse, where you have booktubers, you know, and the stands too, embracing all different types of genres. But now we're in a very interesting time on BookTube, where we kind of have this interesting divide that's happening. We have the conversation of what do we do with Black booktubers, and do we treat Black booktubers like booktubers, or do we treat Black booktubers based on what they read, or do we only associate Black booktubers with Black literature, which is fine, but not all Black booktubers want that type of association, because it can be stereotypical. And then on the other hand, BookTube sometimes goes through phases of certain genre association. So right now, YA is still dominating. That's just how it is right now, and it probably will be for a long time. But just like what Jenny was mentioning, is that now everybody's interested in fantasy, almost. So my thing is, if I read something popular, and this is an unpopular opinion, if I read something popular, it's because I like to read it. Now I won't sit here and lie that I like to read. If something's popular, so I won't lie, I will check it out, because I'm like, okay, why is it popular? So for example, I bought Sarah J Maas's both of her series, Thorn in the Grass and the Court of whatever, Thorn and Roses. I got that just because I saw everybody else on BookTube talking about it. So sometimes you can get influenced, but at the end of the day, for me, because I can only speak for myself, I feel like you still have to read what you enjoy, especially when you have a show. And that's something I've noticed about BookTube, is that people really look up to us and respect our opinion. So when you're only reading something that's popular, oh, hey, what's up, Jericho? What's up? But when you're only reading what's popular, then what starts to happen is that it's only popular stuff that's being talked about, and then the series that could be, let's say, older series or series that really stand out, that are really unique, get covered up. This is one of the issues with YA, because the problem with YA, in my opinion, is that YA is one of those genres where it's not like other genres. Like with fantasy, people talk about the classics, people talk about what's new and that type of stuff. But with YA, it's all about what's new, what's new, what's new, what's new, what's new. And that creates burnout because you can only keep up with those new series for so long. And then there's a pro and con with new series. Like if your show is just focusing on new stuff, then people expect you to keep up with that. And then when you don't keep up with that, you may get canceled. So that's the reason why when I did the introduction to my show, I made it very clear, you know, and sometimes your show will change, you know, and things like that. That's just part of like being a creative person, right? But that's why I wanted to make it clear, like what I'm gonna be reading and stuff like that, is so that people don't have this perception that I'm just reading new stuff. Now I am reading a popular series, but I just feel sometimes that's something to me that's problematic with BookTube, is that there's this expectation of you having to read new shit like all the time, and I don't do that. I'm very vintage, you know. If there's something new that really like gets me going and I'm excited about it, of course, you know, a bitch will let you know. But I feel like BookTube just needs a little better variety. Instead of just talking about new series all the time, there are, you know, there are audiences within BookTube that actually like for booktubers to talk about older book series and talk about, you know, series maybe in between, maybe a series that's 2-3 years old or whatever. You know, at the end of the day, people gonna do what they're gonna do with their shows, so that's not my business. But I do want to address some of these observations, because I think it may not hinder the BookTube community now, but what could happen is what happened in, and you know, book history. I've been reading up on that. There was a moment, guys, in book history where the romance genre got burned out, because there were so many romance books being created, and it was like this formula that people just got tired of it. And it took a while, you know. It's just like the vampire romance genre. You know, there was Twilight, and then after that, you know, there were a couple of other series, and then it just got burned out. So that's my concern with BookTube right now, the current state that it's in. That it could get burned out, you know. And that's the problem with YA, is that YA is all about, like, it's commercialism. As much as people don't want to talk about it, I will talk about it. It's commercialism. It really is. Because like as soon as a new series comes out, people forget about the old series unless they really into it. So we shall see what's going to happen to Sarah J. Maas, because don't get me wrong, her books very successful. They're up there, regardless of how people feel about her, right? And her books. But we shall see how long. Will she become a legend? Will she become like Anne Rice or like people like that? Only time will tell, because that's a problem. I feel so bad for YA authors, because they have this problem of they always have to outdo themselves, and they always got to keep up. Like, guys, when you go to the YA section, I've observed this in many bookstores. Like, there was one series that comes out, and then 6 weeks later, oh, check out this new series. Here's 15 other spin-offs. And you're like, I just read the first, I just finished reading the first one, or, you know. And sometimes you can get criticized for reading older series, or people will tell you you got to keep up with the pace. And we got a lot to talk about on this show, bitch. Ooh, I cannot wait. I cannot wait. So let's see what you guys saying, what you guys saw him. So Lo says, I just can't get into Sarah J. Maas. She's not my jam. Yeah, from the research I've read about her, she is a really nice person though, guys. I'll give her that. Like, she's like the type of person that I could like sit down and just kiki talk to, you know. But a lot of the times for her books, from what I've read, just sometimes it's the way it's laid out, or like the characters, or like what happens to the characters, sometimes people have a problem with. But see, these are normal things that you deal with as an author. Like, no matter how detailed, you know, you'll get with your series, there's always going to be someone out there that's like, this is not my cup of tea, and that's fine. I think all an author's responsibility is to just, they, you know, work on their book, they release it, and they, you know, do the book tours, and just explain your rhetoric. I think that's what most book fans want, is that you just want to just explain your rhetoric, you know, like explain why your characters are the way that they are. You know, maybe explain the world building, because to me, that's what makes or breaks an author, is descriptive details and world building. If that world does not match the characters, I cancel that book series, because I know it's going to be a waste of time for me to read it. You know, now sometimes there's a redemption somewhere in there, but when it comes to fantasy, if that world is not constructed well, it's a wrap. like it's a wrap. You can have some bomb ass characters, but if those characters do not know how to interact with the world, oh, you're fucked. You're done. Jenny says, I tried to get into the fantasy genre, I couldn't get into it. Yeah, I think what makes fantasy really difficult for people to get into is, for some people, it's just the concept of fantasy, things not being tangible. And sometimes it's tangible, but most of the time, especially when you're reading high fantasy, you know, you're reading like apocalyptic stuff, they call it dystopia. It's sometimes it's so real that it's scary, so it can be very off-putting to read for some readers. Now for me, I like some fantasy, but I have to have my fantasy with some romance in there, because you know me, guys. But if there's good action scenes, that's what really makes to me a really good fantasy book, is that the characters are properly interacting with their environment, they're learning the consequences to their actions, like stuff like that. But now fantasy is all about just being extra sometimes, and it's not actually about the foundations, to me, of really good writing. You know, you're having descriptive characters, you got the world building in there. You know, sometimes there are certain complexities that really make the series like stand out, you know. And sometimes you don't have to write an anthology, you know. You don't have to write books that are the size of a fucking dictionary. You know, that's why novellas are really getting popular, guys, is because it's just really nice and concise, you know. I mean, it's just to the point, you know. So that's sometimes the issue that people have with fantasy too, is fantasy can be really very elongated, you know. And fantasy also can come from a historical standpoint. Sometimes there's mythology and things like that. So for some people, unless you're really into, let's say the fantasy is set in a certain time period and you like that time period, or maybe, you know, it's time travel or something, if you're not into those things, fantasy is not going to be for you. You know, it's just not. It's meant to, sometimes it's meant to evoke the imagination in ways that it like really makes your mind expand, but it depends on the author that you're reading, you know. But there are, guys, a lot of really awesome fantasy writers and stuff. I'm still learning about the genre myself. But yeah, I've noticed there's a lot of fantasy talk, which is good, because for a very long time, guys, to be fair, just like romance, especially paranormal romance, fantasy got shunned. Like, there were very, like, certain types of fantasy, and that's another thing about booktube, is that certain types of fantasy is acceptable, certain types of fantasy not acceptable, certain types of fantasy is you know, if it's popular, it's cool, but if you read something that's a little more intricate, you know, or it's something that's done by independent, and I shout outs to the independent authors, because that's another problem. Like, we talk about all the popular authors, which is fine, you're gonna read what you like at the end of the day, but we also have to acknowledge independent authors too, which is happening, which is a good thing. But sometimes if you're not reading what's popular, then people don't care about you on BookTube sometimes. So that's why I appreciate my audience, is because we're very unique that way, that we read all different types of things, and that we can come together and have really good dialogue like what we're having right now. And Lo says, I couldn't get into magical realism. Yeah, magical realism is a whole different ball game. I just started learning about that too. And Jenny says, let me tell you, the romance book community they get hot and bothered for the shifters, for the bad guys, the alpha male, alpha female, enemies to lovers. I like a guy treating me nice. I was actually talking to my mother about this. I was just like, what is it with, like, sometimes the romance genre, and how some women just love reading about a guy that treats them like shit? That does not turn me on whatsoever. That does not get me hot and bothered. You know what gets me hot and bothered? A man with good health insurance. Okay? Yes. But maybe that's just me. Yeah, shifters are the thing. I'll have to read one, because, you know, I said I canceled, you know, shifter romances. Maybe I just read one that was shitty. I don't know. But it hasn't been my thing. I'm like, I don't get hot and bothered by, you know, a guy, like, you know, I mean, maybe if the guy transformed and had more six-pack, okay, maybe. But no. Now I'm being a bitch. Okay. And Aya says, I adore fantasy. Currently reading The Last Witch. Yes! Oh my gosh, guys, I love The Witcher, man. I'm playing through the games right now. I'm totally into that. I have a series on here called Books and Video Games, where I'll play from time to time video games that are based on book series, and I just started playing the Witcher Enhanced Edition, and I just bought all the books too. Guys, I love me Geralt of Rivia. Okay, he is delicious. Okay, I'm just saying. But also I agree with you about commercialism. Yeah, there's just some genres, guys, that it's just meant to be commercial. And to keep it real, certain genres within YA, like, for example, what they call it now, YA romance, that's so fucking commercial. It really is. You know, or there's what's called like new adult. New adult, at first some people perceived it as being a commercial genre, but to me, new adult really, it stands on its own because of the topics that new adult addresses. So new adult, guys, is it's a genre. It can be like romance, it depends, but it's focused on dealing with the college experience. So I tend to read a lot more like new adult into adult, because I can relate to those experiences. But YA, there's always been that debate, like, should adults be reading YA, because YA is not for us. So that's how that's always a touchy topic, because there are a lot of adults that read YA, and that's why mature YA came out, for that very reason. But YA can be problematic because it's commercial. You know, it's not like other genres that I've read, like modern YA, because there is a difference. Modern YA is commercial. It's about what's popular. You know, it's not. You could write a modern YA and not even have a good storyline, and people will support you. That's the real tea, okay? Like, you don't even have to try, you know. Whereas other genres like horror, let me tell you, fans of horror literature, they don't fuck around. They they're like, you gotta write this shit correct. like they about their details and things like that, depending on the series. But I noticed with YA, it can be very easy to get involved in, which is a pro and con. It is, but most of the newer YA series, they get overlooked, you know, because 5 more are coming out in like 3 days. So that it doesn't allow the authors to have like fair competition, really. You know, like once their series is hot, oh, let's bump it, there's another series that's hot, and it's like, well, damn. So I really feel for the authors who write YA. It's not easy, you know, and you have a lot of constraints that you have to work in, you know. It's not easy. It's not, you know. And all right, let's see what Jericho is saying. And Jericho says, fantasy is okay as long as it doesn't get too tropey. See, that's the thing with fantasy, where there's tropes in every genre, and those tropes are sometimes what carries the story besides the character development. So it's hard to have fantasy without tropes. See, that's kind of like an unpopular opinion, because if you talk to someone that's a fan of reading fantasy, they would tell you the opposite, that there's, you know, it's not a trope. But it can get tropey. It can, especially with some of the newer series that I've seen. But that's what sometimes makes fantasy, is that it's unrealistic. So for example, I'm gonna get a lot of heat for this, but that's what I do here. You could say Lord of the Rings is tropey, because some of the characters, I mean, they're larger than life, you know, which is sometimes a common trope that you see within fantasy, science fiction, you know, things that are unrealistic, you know, like hover cars and things like that. So that could also be tropey, you know. So that's why I always tell people that when it comes to literature, you can find a trope in everything. Even this series I'm reading here, there's tropes in it. There's the vampires who wear black leather. There's the traditional elements of how vampires behave in like the classic vampire, you know, literature books. So there's tropes in everything. There is And if there's a book series that says, oh, it's trope free, nah, that's a bunch of bullshit. There's some tropes in there. That's sometimes what makes it compelling. It depends on what you're reading, though. That's really, to me, the key to it. And Jericho says, action in stories and other media needs to be done like a dance. It's a performance for the reader and the viewer to give more insight into the characters as a whole. Yeah, that's a good point, actually. But it also depends how it's done, too. To be fair, if there's too much action, then you forget about the character development. If there's not enough action, there's character development, but you want the action because you're like, these characters are getting along too well. Like, there needs to be some dissonance to make the story more interesting. This is why you have protagonists and you have antagonists. The antagonists are going against the protagonist. That's what makes us read it, guys. I mean, honestly, a book it just has words in it, right? But it's how the author constructs those sentences, constructs the story, that makes us want to read it. I think action is just one of those things where, for me, it has to be done in a way where it structurally makes sense. This is where a lot of people have a problem with science fiction and fantasy, is that sometimes when you write fantasy, it can be unstructured. Like, sometimes things will happen to the characters where you're like, what? You know, you weren't expecting it, but it has to be unstructured, because if not, it doesn't make you want to be compelled to read more. You know, some of my favorite authors, guys, they're masters of, like, Anne Rice is a master of doing that. Like, you know, you read the first book and everything is going well with the characters, and then I read The Vampire Lestat, and I was like, oh my gosh, I think I hate Lestat, you know? But then as I kept reading it, I was like, oh, so that's why he's so, like, you know, snotty. Like, you know, that's not only his personality, but that's what he's you know, what he's been through. So, and you know, but yeah, that's sometimes the issues with romance is like what you guys are talking about is like there's some tropes that it doesn't hold on one second here, guys. I'm like sweating. Let me turn my fan on here. And then we'll get back to reading here. Whew, I had to turn on my fan. I completely forgot. I started sweating. My headphones are oily. This is so gross. All right, perfect. But yeah, there's a lot of things in romance where it's just, it doesn't add to the story. Like sometimes there's too much drama, for example, in romance, you know, where it's like that drama was not necessary. Or sometimes and this is just me, I just think the whole alpha male thing sometimes can be overdone in romance. You know, or the jerky guy. It's like, okay, we get it. He's an asshole. Not romantic to me, but let me tell you, there are like, guys, there's a subgenre of this. Hundreds of thousands of books have been produced, and so many women swoon for these guys that are assholes. They're not like guys that, like, you know, or the love interest overall, you know, let's say they learn from their mistakes and they're trying to be better. Like, those are the type of romances I like to read. But you know, a lot of people, they love a bad romance, and it does not get me hot and bothered. That's just me, though. that's just me. Maybe I'm just a wimp or something. You know, but yeah, seduction is just, it's not always there. In some of the romance books I've read, it's just like, okay, let's just get to the sex, and that's fine. But like sometimes I would like to get a little build up, you know. But yeah, it's crazy. And Aya's like, I gotta go. Well, thanks so much. I appreciate you coming and checking out the show. That really means a lot, man. I appreciate it. But guys, like I said, I'm gonna be doing this show twice a week. It'll be Wednesdays and Thursdays, and we have a good damn time here. See, we keep it real here, okay? But thanks so much for watching. I appreciate it. All right, guys, so okay, I know I'm on my tangents. Okay, let's see what happens. We gotta see what happens to Raph and Beth here. Oh. I do like Torment, dude. Torment is so boss. Like, he's just like, hey, what's up, man? He's just like real chill. Like, I love that. Even though his name does not match that kind of coolness, if you really think about it. But yeah, Raft is really something else because he's contemplating being a good guy for Beth. Like, that's fucked up if you really think about it. Because, like, okay, so what happened, guys, is Raft ended up marking Beth so that no other vampire guys would go after her, okay? And that is, to me, that's not fair, okay? It's like, all right, so they slept together. He's like, all right, she's mine. And then you decide to change your mind. No, you can't play with someone's heart like that. So I thought that was fucked up. I was just like, really? Really, Raph? Like, this is how it's going to go? See, that's the thing. I have a love-hate relationship with Raph because there's some moments where he's really sweet, you know, and really romantic. But then there's some moments where I'm like, you are such an asshole. Like, really, man? Like, what does Beth see in you? Like, what is it? But that's just me, though. You know. Yeah, and the cheating romances. That's a good point, Lo. I've noticed that's something that's very popular, is like cheating romances. I don't see the point to them because to me, and this is just me, it's this personal opinion. To me, the whole point of the romance genre is romance. And it's, you know, seeing how these characters come together for the greater good, or sometimes, you know, they come together for the wrong reasons and the relationship falls apart, because that is a realistic thing that happens in love. But with the cheating romances, the reason why I don't like some of them is that they're glorifying cheating. Like, cheating is supposed to be something that's sexy. And it's not, because when you cheat on someone, you're doing not only a disservice to yourself because you're making yourself look ratchet, you're also making that other person embarrassed and looking like a fool. Because when you love someone, you trust them. So, like, for me, if I got married and my man decides to cheat on me, I'm not giving him a second chance. You made that decision when you got into bed with someone else, so I'm gonna let you go. Because I know that there's another man out there who won't do that. So, ladies, this is why the dating phase is very important. Because you get to see a preview of how that person's going to be like when they marry you, if that's what you want to do. So, dating, that's the purpose of dating, you know, or courtship as they call it. If you see that a man is not going to be consistent, this is heterosexual perspective here, but if you see that a man's not going to be consistent, he's not going to be loyal, you need to let him go. And if the guy breaks up with you, I know it hurts. You know, you have to have that moment of, you know, of releasing and healing and all that. He did you a favor. And I would say the same thing to guys too. Like, if a lady cheats on you, that sucks. Your feelings are gonna get hurt, but eventually you'll have to move on. And that lady did you a favor, or your partner or whatever, they did you a favor. So you just have to learn to pick up the pieces. And then, you know what I like to do? Let's say someone cheats on me. Trust and believe. I will be in that gym. I will be wearing the finest outfit. I will be working out so that the next time I see my ex, they will regret the day they broke up with me. So that's what I like to do. I like to look like an upgrade, not a downgrade. Get your life, okay? But see, maybe I'm just petty, you know. But you have the right to be petty though when someone cheats on you though, because like a relationship is an investment, right? So if you have spent all this time looking sickening, you know, you're respecting the monogamy, if that's the type of relationship you have, and then you gonna cheat on me with someone else, then you should have not been with me in the first place. That's trifling. Okay, now I'm getting all in my feelings. But no, I get so mad about cheating. It's not cute. But there are some women that think it's hot. Like there's a lot of romance readers, men and women, you know, etc., etc. that like these cheating romances. It's just like the quarantine romance. Okay, the last thing on my mind is dating with a quarantine going on. Okay, I'm trying to survive out here. So I mean, I get why quarantine romances are like popular, but like it's not for me. Okay, I'm not gonna be yelling out of a window like, I love you, please date me, but we have to practice social distancing. I don't got time for that. I'm gonna wait until, you know, we overcome this situation, which we will, and commence dating that way. Okay, like I want to touch my man, I want to hug my man, you know what I mean? I'm not gonna be on he on a balcony, I'm on a balcony, and I'm using like a tube or something to like, I love you, honey. I don't got time. So do you, if you're into the quarantine romances, live your best life, but it's stupid to me. It is not for me. The cheating romances, if I'll read some here on the show, you know, to review, but I know I will be all up in my feelings. You know, I'll be sweating more than I'm sweating now because I'll be so pissed off. I'll be like, why are you staying with this fool? So I get so invested, guys, when it comes to like reading books. Like it was so funny. I was like talking to my mother a couple days ago, and remember, guys, maybe for those of you who are new, I did a review on Tracy A. Ball's Civil Warriors. Excellent book, guys. If you want a really, really nice interracial Civil War romance, I highly recommend it. But when I was reading it, guys, let me tell you, I was telling my mother this. I was like, oh my gosh, and that this happened, and that this happened. And then my mom was getting into it too. She's like, tell me what happened now. But see, that's what makes a good book, is when you can't stop talking about it. Like, you kiki in with all your friends. You're like, let me tell you, like, oh, I can't believe he did this. I can't believe she did this. The world building. It was, it was everything. Like, so that's how I just get so invested when I read. Like, I be so extra, guys, but oh my gosh. But yeah. And I agree too with what Jericho was saying. But you know, sometimes cheating though, if it works though in the storyline, okay, so I'm reading a book right now, which I'm not gonna reveal because I'm doing a review on it. But let's just say that it has some, like, well, I would say semi cheating in there, but the person learned from the consequences of cheating, you know, that's acceptable to me. But when the whole book is like, oh, okay, since you cheated on me, I'm gonna live my best life, I'm gonna cheat on you, that's not cute. Okay, if someone cheats on you, okay, they're looking bad. Don't make yourself look bad and then you cheat on them. Okay, then it cancels each other out. So always, like, if you get cheated on, always be the better person. Like, seriously, because in the end, you won. You know, even though it's not a competition, but you know what I mean, you know? But oh my gosh, guys, I am all in my feelings. Woo! All in my feelings today. This book's got me emotional right now. Oh my gosh, this is a mess. Okay, let's see what happens here. Yo, Raph, dude, Raph is cracking me up. Okay, so this is when you know a guy like really likes you, is when he forgets his own like schedule. Okay, so he's getting ready, you know, he got that probably that good cologne on, you know what I'm saying, and he looking good, and and you know his brothers are telling him like, okay, you looking fine, you know, you looking good, you know, giving him props, and you know Raph, you know, he got to be on the bullshit. So then all of a sudden he forgets that he set up a meeting for the brotherhood to discuss some things. So then he was just like, well, okay, let me push it back, we'll meet at midnight. And I'm just like, wow, Beth got him fucked up. Let me tell y'all, a mess. Whew, sorry guys. Yo, Raft is a hypocrite, dude. Okay, so he's saying that, oh, I kind of regret doing this date, you know, with Beth. But then when one of his brothers tells him like, hey man, she's really beautiful, then you gonna be up in your feelings? You can't be up in your feelings, Raft. Make up your mind. You either with her or you're not. Like, don't be marking somebody and then you want to cancel them. That's some bullshit. Oh man, this book got me upset. See, Tor has the common sense. He can totally tell that Raft is like is in his feelings. So I like Tor too. He pretty cool. Oh. Lies. yo Raph is saying, he's like, okay, so Tor is saying like, hey man, you know, she's fine, I don't blame you, man, go for it, you know what I'm saying? And then Raph's just like, oh well, I'm just going to, you know, be nice to her until she fully changes and then I'm gonna leave. Yeah, right, you gonna stay right there. Okay, if you mark somebody in this particular world, that means that person is yours. So cut out with the bullshit. Oh my gosh. Man. He must really like her, because he telling the other brothers to back off. Aww. Ooh. I like this part. Okay, so she describes okay, so all right, so pretty much Raph is jealous of Thor. Let's just keep it real, okay? Because Thor, he has okay, so a Shellin is similar to like your bond mate, like your like a soulmate would be the closest probable thing, you know. So Raph is just feeling some kind of way because he's not had those feelings, even though he had Marissa, but that relationship, it just wasn't the same way that he feels about Beth. So he want to come and throw shade and say that he's whooped because he has a Shellin. Like, really? Have several seats. Okay, this is when you know that you're mad, okay? So, it says here, he roared until his throat felt as if it was going to tear apart, until his chest burned. Okay, that's called heartburn. That's heartburn, okay? Oh my gosh, like... Yeah, Raph was wrong for that, because like Thor was just trying to give him some manly advice, you know, because he could tell like he feeling her like that. So that's mad disrespectful, yo. Like, okay, I think Raph is not my favorite anymore. He's too much of an asshole. I just can't. But see, I'm a hypocrite because, oh hey, we got Marshall. Hey, thanks so much for following. I appreciate it. But oh my gosh, like I don't think I like Raph anymore. I don't think so, because he's an asshole. Like, I can't. Oh, thank you so much for hosting. Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm being extra. But oh my gosh, yeah, I don't think I like Raph. I'm kind of not attracted to him. I was attracted to him first, maybe just because of the muscles, but see, that's not good, because when you like someone, you should like the content of their whole character and not just how they look like, okay? Because as you get older, looks do fade, okay? So yeah, I was liking him for superficial reasons, to be completely transparent. Oh my gosh, but this chapter is good, so I'm liking this. I like all the banter, all that good shit. Man, he's pissed. Okay, so this is sexy. This is just me though. Maybe I'm just thirsty. I am so messy, y'all. But that's why we like this show, right? Because we just keep it real and just, yes. Okay, so it says here, I thought this was sexy. So, Raph hands dropped to his side. She was dressed in black. Her hair was up and she smelled like night blooming roses. He breathed in through his nose, his body hardening, his instincts demanding that he get her under him. Like, hot! Oh my gosh, yes. I love Fritz, man. Fritz is awesome. Okay, so he fouled for this. This is a foul. Okay, so Beth took the time. She got that nice black dress on. The hair is up. She is living her fantasy. And then Raph has the audacity to say, good, let's get this over with. Okay, last time I checked, this is a date. Okay, and when you on a date, you supposed to respect me. So if you didn't want to go on this date, you didn't have to, bitch. Like, please. I can't. This is ridiculous. Alright guys, so we finished chapter 24. So what I'm gonna do, guys, for I dropped my bookmark here, of course. So this is my new bookmark. How cool is that, right? All right, so what I'm gonna do, guys, for the when I finish a chapter, we'll do like a wrap up and kind of give my thoughts on the chapter. So we reacted to chapter 24 of Dark Lover. So what do I think so far? This was probably the best chapter that I have read in the book so far. It had a lot of drama, some humor between Raft and Thor before it turned ugly. I don't like Raft anymore. He's like an asshole, but who knows? Maybe in my mind, you know, I'm indecisive. But I think of the brothers so far, I do like Torment. I do, and I do like Tor because of his loyalty to his Shellin. Like, that's really romantic. Like, he like loves his Shellin, okay? Like, I could feel those emotions, like, you know, coming from him. So yeah, I think those are my favorites now. Butch, I would like if he was not so emotionally unbalanced. He's crazy as hell. Like, he just doesn't know when to let go, you know? But overall, chapter 24 was really good. It was exciting. But we'll see how, yeah, we'll see how this date goes, okay? So that'll be coming up next week. Oh, good. Next week, Thursday, we'll continue. But hopefully I might be done with this, but you never know. The way my life has been, guys, I don't know. I'm surprised I'm continuing to read this shit. But guys, yeah, I think it was great. I think it was really awesome. So we'll be doing these readathon challenge reactions every Thursday and then, or Wednesday. And then Thursday will be either me, you know, doing a like talking about something I want to talk about in regards to BookTube and all that, or it could be something else. It could be a books and video games episode. You never know. But of course, guys, you can keep in touch with me the following ways. Okay, I am both on Twitter and Instagram, which is at Bookshade and then the number 1. So guys, just because I was tired and this took a lot out of me, I'm not going to come back today. I'll come back later on today, and then we'll have the discussion that I wanted to talk about is it really necessary to call yourself a black booktuber? I think it's a very important conversation to have, because there's pros and cons to it, and I really wanted to talk about it. I think it's something that is very important to talk about, and we'll talk about it later on today. Okay, so guys, thanks so much for watching my reaction of Dark Lover. I try. Okay, by J.R. Ward. This is book 1 of the Black Dagger Brotherhood, and I'm gonna react to them all, guys. There are a lot of books in this series, so I'm gonna do it. We're gonna have fun, and that's what we do here. Okay, here at Bookshade, and I'm getting out of here, y'all. But like I always say, remember to embrace the darkness of reading. I'll see you guys later on today. Take care, guys.